News continues here on RT. Security forces have barricaded Pakistan's parliament with 3 layers of shipping containers as tens of thousands of protesters press forward. Their leader, an Islamic cleric, has issued the government with a final ultimatum. He's demanding the parliament's dissolution and sweeping election reforms, threatening to spark a revolution if he is ignored. Well, earlier the Supreme Court ordered the arrest of the Prime Minister, who's embroiled in a bribery scandal, while some government officials have called it a conspiracy between the protesters, the army and the courts. Well, let's now discuss the possible regional implications with Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. He's the Dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs, joining me there in India from New Delhi. Now, in just a few short months, Dr. Qadri rose from relative obscurity to political stardom. How do you think he's managed to do that?
Well, he got a lot of media coverage for sure. The media has been acting as a kind of watchdog of the people against the misgovernance and the corruption of the ruling Pakistan People's Party, as well as the state governments which are run by the opposition Pakistan Muslim League. So the mainstream parties have been getting flack, deservedly, for failing the people's expectations, both on the economic front and with the wars that have been happening there. So suddenly, like a meteor, he has risen up. And many people, of course, have the suspicions that he's being primed by the military establishment in order to further weaken the hold of the civilian parties. And that's the reason why he's getting so much billing and is being tipped as some kind of, savior and a messiah of the country, who is anti-system, anti-political parties, and is upholding the common person's grievances against the entire establishment of the civilian side. So I think, his message has also echoed. He's a televangelist kind of figure. His brand of Islam is moderate and Sufi. And so I think all these factors, he's a magnetic speaker and a good communicator with the masses. All these factors have mattered. Although, frankly speaking, he is in many ways anti-democratic, because he has not indicated whether he will himself participate and contest elections, and has been demanding all these systemic reforms that mean possibly a delay of elections, which are slated for the next few months. So all these factors mean that he's a complicated figure, and I don't think he should be welcomed outright.
Well, that's what I want to ask you. I mean, you've said a lot of good things about him, and also some bad things about him. Is that how India views him? What do they make of him? What does India think?
Tahir al-Qadri visited India last year and made some relatively pleasant statements which were well received. He spoke about the need for peace between the two countries, and also for diverting defense expenditure towards the developmental needs of the poor in both India and Pakistan. So he belongs to a sect of moderate Islam, the Sufi sect, which also has ties with northern India, with the Barelvi school and all that. So there's a following for the brand of tolerant and open Islam that he espouses. So in his own ideological way, he's not anti-India. But where we have been concerned in India is with the fact that he may be opportunistically riding on the coattails of the military and may be using the non-elected undemocratic forces like the judiciary and the military in order to rise to power. And as we know, Pakistan's history is full of such figures who have taken the help of the military and have later been devoured by it. So that is always the concern, because the military takes over, it means more tension with India and more problems in Kashmir. And there has in fact been an uptick in violence and ceasefire violations and border violations over the last few months.
Okay, away from the regional implications, let's look again at the domestic implications now in Pakistan. Would the government perhaps yield to Qadri's demands, or perhaps could this lead to some sort of revolution? Some are saying this could be another Arab Spring. Could it get to that point?
Well, Nawaz Sharif, the main opposition leader, has called Mr. Qadri's promise of revolution as more of a storm in a teacup. And my own feeling is that, the media and some of the less democratic forces have a hand in fanning Qadri and making him look more menacing and more revolutionary than he really is. Well, one thing is for sure, the government is under pressure not only from Qadri but also from the courts. And I don't think the courts are acting in tandem with Qadri, but what is happening is that the courts have had a long run-in with the civilian government, the existing one of President Zardari, and in a way it's like a pincer movement from both sides, but possibly not coordinated. But what is happening is that it looks like both the mass movement that Qadri is trying to rig up, as well as the judiciary, seem to be taking cues from each other and timing their blows against the government almost simultaneously, which means trouble for democratic institutions in the long run. And I'm afraid that it allows leeway for the military to remain the ultimate kingmaker and the puppeteer behind the shadows, and which is not great news for South Asia as a whole, because if Pakistan does not genuinely democratize, we are in trouble.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, Professor and Dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs. We appreciate your time.